think that it's time, no?
Okay.
See, I have no problem with people coming in, but I really resent when people get out. And exactly considering I just said the word resentment. I resent. Well, good evening, ladies, gentlemen. And this one is a fourth step workshop, and it's a 4 weeks kind of course. The first week we talk about resentment, the second about fear, the third week we talk about harm done to others and the sex inventory, and the fourth week we just waste our time repeating everything. Today is the first week of the month, so we talk about we'll talk about inventory, and as I promised last week, today we will do something a little bit different. I just want to, I think we have a new person, so I will replace what we are doing here as a fourth step, why it is important, and then actually this week I would like to go over some specific inventory, some resentment that one of you will volunteer to bring forward, and we start to see how we work in practical terms. So the first step is the beginning of what? The beginning of change. It's the first action step that we take, and it is the beginning of a lifetime change of ourselves. Step one, we admitted we were powerless, our life was unmanageable, and that is the only step that we need to have done really perfectly, because one of the main causes of relapse is the little voice in the back that says, yes, I am, that's it, I give up, but, the little but, maybe, one day I can use it, just occasionally, maybe I can use it, I can drink again, just socially, maybe I can just be a normal drinker, blah, 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 maybe one day, and that is the delusion that we carry with ourselves, and that is usually the delusion that brings us to the gate of insanity, death, or something else. So the first step has to be we have to be really convinced that we are powerless over our addiction, and that our life is unmanageable. So second step, we just come to believe that actually we need help. That is the beginning of the concept of humility. In place of just relying on ourselves and think that we can do it on our own, we understand we need some power that is greater than ourselves. And usually each one finds his own path to this higher power. My path was starting to consider meetings and the group as my higher power, because when I was going to meetings, I didn't drink, I didn't use, I didn't gamble. So that was my first step, and then slowly, with time, when my mind started to clear a little bit, long time before it cleared, I started to develop something more personal and of a more spiritual basis, and I call today my higher power God. So once we accept the fact that we need this help, we need to do something more. Step 3. We need to surrender. It says clearly on the big book, be convinced that what defeated you is the self. Okay. So we have to surrender what was the root of our problems, the cause of our disease. It was the self, the ego. And that is obvious. And actually, if you remember, I like to say that this step 4 has this kind of backward importance, because in going back into our past and see all the damage that we have done, all the anger that we kept within ourselves, all the fear that we were the victim of, we realized that when we manage or try to manage our life, the results were, oops, not very good. So the step 4, going back in the past, reinforced our understanding of desire and the acceptance of the fact that it's a good idea to surrender our ego and surrender to a manager of our life better than ourselves. So basically, I gave up being the manager of my life. I accepted somebody else to be a manager of my life, and I have to stay on the spot. The fourth step helped me to reinforce this aspect. So I was not a very good manager of my life. The other function of the step 4 are essentially these. It will help us to get rid of one of the what is called the cause number 1 of our disease, that is resentment. It will help us to outgrow fear, and then it will help us to create the beginning of the list of what it will be the list of our amends, and the whole process through resentment, fears, and harm done to others, and sex inventory. It will put forward what are the character defects or the character flaws that we have that are used by the ego as tool to keep us in bondage. The process, I think, is clear in this sense. The ego use fear and these character defects to maintain us in a position of bondage to it, basically to keep having his job back. He wants his job back. Now, he says, I forgot the page, but it should be page 660 something, where he says, being convinced that the ego is what defeated you, we examine our most common manifestation. Of course, I left my book with all the... Okay, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what has defeated us, we consider it its common manifestations. So it is very clear from the sentence that is on page 64, that what defeated us is the self, okay? And the self manifests itself in various different ways, and so we examine the ways in which the self manifests to defeat us. And the offender number 1 is resentment. What is a resentment? Can anybody tell me what is a resentment? Really, what do you think it is, a resentment?
I was being too close to the teacher. What is a resentment? I don't know. A hurt feeling?
Anger. That is emotions that definitely are accompanied by resentment. Resentment actually is a word that comes from yes.
Something that you refill, anger that you refill.
To refill emotions, essentially. It actually comes from the Latin.
And it's always against something else other than yourself. Right?
Well, usually that's what it is the reactions, an emotional reaction that we have to an actual or perceived harm. And it's very important that we stress the word perceived, because many times we feel we want to believe that we are the victim of something, perceive something as harmful to us or done against us, but then upon examination we realize that actually that is not the case. That they might be just either an excuse that we wanted to find to act up, or the reaction to something that actually we did. Okay? So that is how we perceive something as harmful because we want or because we have no better tools to understand that actually was not something that was done to us. And again, it's important that we stress to us, in reality it's not being done to us, but it's done to our ego. Because the ego is the one that interprets their actions as harmful. The ego is the one that attached to those actions certain values and then bring forward the emotion that says, aha, there is the action, there is the value, it is against me, therefore I have anger and resentment. And again, I used to divide the resentment in three categories, into groups. Okay, probably you should remember that by heart now.
I wrote it down.
Okay, what is the first one?
I should remember it by heart.
Who remember what it was?
Justifiable?
I wasn't here. I'm
Non-existent.
Yeah, excuses. The non-existent one. Or I call them non-existent, but in reality are just so flimsy. Basically, upon immediate examination, you realize there is no basis for the resentment. There was no harm done in real terms. The example that we usually give is the traffic or the driving rage,
Road
what do you call it? Road rage.
Road rage.
Road rage. Yeah, I mean, somebody crossed me, just cut me in front and I get all pissed off. What is the harm? Actually, there is nothing really. There is no harm. But I perceive that because it harms my image. So then when ego starts to act up. So there is a perceived harm that immediately becomes resentment. That is based on fear and pride. Pride is the projection of the ego in a protective way, based on fear. So then we have the second group. The second group are those resentments that come from an action that we perceive as harmful to us, that affect, most of the time affect actually what we call the sense of justice. That is really the biggest umbrella that we invented, to justify a lot of reactions. But anyway, it is part of an action that had been done against us that injured us, but that upon examination actually is more the reaction of something that we did. And most of the time we discover that when we examine the part that we had in that event, we discover that the resentment starts to decrease. Okay. Essentially, I did something, the person reacted, and I forgot. I don't want to take into consideration what I did. I just see the reaction of the person. I say, look at this jerk, what he did to me. So I keep the resentment because the guy was unfair, was unjust, on an immediate reaction. But then when I go to examine actually how the events developed, I discover that, oops, maybe there was another jerk in these things. Maybe I was the one that was also at fault in the interaction. So that is basically the kind of resentment that might find the solution, an easier solution within themselves. And then there is the third group, the justifiable, the righteous resentments, where actually a harm, violence, an injustice has been done to us. It's not only perceived, but actually was there, and we had no parts whatsoever in the creation of the events, or a part so minimal that basically is irrelevant. So we were actually the victim. And I like to focus on the third part, because why the first and the second one can help us, is important to list them, because they will help us to see our character defects, so the mechanisms that we put into motion in our interaction with the external world. The third group of resentments is extremely powerful and require a different approach to resolve. It is powerful because it can be painful, and because in our case as addicts and alcoholics, it can be deadly. It's been said very clearly on the big book that basically if you keep resentments, you will go back to drink. And if we go back to drink or to use, the result for us can be deadly. There are no two ways about that. So how do we address that issue? How can we overcome or get rid of a resentment that is justified?
That's justified?
That is justified. I mean, it is.
No part
I
of
have the right because my part is very. I didn't have any part.
Through
of it.
forgiveness.
Forgiveness. That is the only answer that we have to that kind of resentment. Now, forgiveness is something that we are not used. Maybe at least I was not used to, but I've seen a lot of friends and people that I know. They are not very used to forgive either much. You know? So forgiveness is, I wouldn't say that is a quality that naturally belongs to alcoholics, addicts, and compulsive gambler, or normal people also. Forgiveness is something that is acquired, is worked on, is developed within ourselves. And we do it through prayer and through action. That is the way that we learn how to forgive. We ask actually God to give us the ability to forgive, to give us the strength to forgive. There is one thing that is really, one of those little quotation, that I like a lot, because one of the reaction that I had when somebody was doing something that I felt was really unjust. I was just going on the tangent immediately. I had to seek vengeance. This jerk would pay very dearly for that. Okay, case in example. I had parked the car and it was 10 inches into the red zone of a driveway, and the guy complained and he got me $50 tickets. I obsessed for 2 days. I went outside and started to take the measurement with the tape. It was only 10 inches. I went to make research if he actually paid for the red zone. I was thinking I can smash his window. No, that is too violent, but I can splash his driveway door, with paint. I can deface his house. I was going to say the $50 will have to cost him at least $500. This jerk will pay. That was my way of being, Immediately I was thinking I needed revenge for something that was done to me. Until finally occurred to me, they go, okay, why did he complain? So he paid for the little red things, and obviously he had reason to have it. Maybe vanity or maybe just practicality. But he paid for it. And was I right to put 10 inches or 7 inches into that? No, I was wrong. He has all the right to do that. So my ego was getting all pissed off. I went out and was seeking revenge. Okay. Now it came to mind the little proverb, quotations. When you think of revenge, begin with digging 2 graves. And that, it was something that struck me a long time ago, and it actually stayed with me. Because essentially the desire for revenge is something that in the long run is going to kill you. We use the expression in AA, the kind of resentment is like in drinking poison, hoping that the other person will die. It doesn't work that way. Now, forgiveness is the answer to this kind of resentment. And my suggestion was, at least the one that I gave to my sponsees, have this little piece of paper with the name of the people or the institution or whatever that you need to forgive, and every day you start to actually pray and asking God, please, God, help me to forgive this jerk, this whatever, blah, 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 blah. And you start to ask God to wishing them the best in their life, even if you don't mean it. Somehow the miracle happened. And that is probably the miracle that, again, I don't know why, but it works. I guarantee you, most of the time, people that actually keep following this practice, it works. And again, I surmise that the reason why it works is because we are forced every day to face the sense of negative feelings, and we realize there is nothing good coming out of it. we get used to the pain starts to lose control over us. We can face when the memory is there and we face it, then some more clarity comes in and the ability to let go becomes stronger. I think that is a kind of mechanism that happens. You know. What is important, I believe, at least that was the process that worked for me, it was to make a very big distinction between the pain that was coming from the wound, okay, from the act of being abused, and the desire of vengeance against the abuser and the abuser. Because I could deal with the pain of the abuse, but if I were putting them together, it would become something so powerful that I couldn't deal with it. Okay. So, and I discovered in my process of healing that the goal, it was not to have the abuser punished. The goal was to have my wound healed. That was my goal. The only thing that I needed, it was to have my wound healed and my rage, my resentment gone. Okay? Then if in the process the guilty party would be punished, had to be absolutely irrelevant. If that happened, it happened. But I had to separate myself from the person, the attacker, as part of the wound, because otherwise I would never heal. You know, it's like when you have a cut and it starts to sweat and you keep scratching it, it will never heal. If you identify with the attacker and you keep reviving that, it's like scratching the wound and you will never let it heal. So the important for me was to separate these two aspects. The harm that was done, I had to heal that. And I had to do through mechanisms that were belonging to me. It was loving myself. It was to understanding that I have nothing to do, so I was not guilty, or I didn't have to have any shame or guilt for what happened. Those mechanisms had to arise from the inside, and they helped me to heal. The attacker and the other person was completely irrelevant. In that separation, it was much easier then to forgive. Because vengeance didn't have any more. In my obsession, I thought once I get my vengeance, I will be healed. My healing comes from seeing the other person punished, and that was the biggest delusion in my life. You know? The few times in my life that actually I was able to have quote unquote the satisfaction, okay, of seeing that the person that harmed me being actually harmed back, and a couple of times I had the ability to be the person that inflicted the harm, the result was really bizarre. Because not only I didn't get any damn satisfaction by the harm that I did to those person, on the contrary, I start to feel pain inside, really pain. I feel that I had to help them. I felt really I was a piece of shit. You know, and immediately the abnormality and the absurdity of my obsession in revenge really hit me, and I didn't get any satisfaction whatsoever. Now that is personal, you know, but it taught me a big lesson, you know. So today I really don't seek vengeance, not even think about vengeance, because I know that I do not enjoy seeing another person harmed. I do not get any satisfaction out of that. I don't. So if somebody did something wrong, I can go with the rationale they use in the big book. You know, that person is sick. I mean, the person that did harm to me is a sick person. I need to have compassion. I need to just extend my love to the person as a sick person, and in that process, I heal myself. So that is how we deal usually with resentment as an abuse, as a violence that we have no part in it. Now, the other suggestion that I gave in terms of resentment, break it down. I don't know if you remember that. First of all, you know, just make sure, I always forget to say that, but we do the fourth step in writing. Right. In writing. Why? There are several reasons that we do that in writing, you know. First, to overcome what I call our natural laziness. But actually, there are other factors. When we write, we are forced to slow down our brain, our head. When we write, our brain has to work slowly. And in writing, what they call the hopscotch, the jumping that we do in our brain, thinking that we went from one step to the other so fast that we think is a logical passage. Once we stop to write it down, suddenly realize that there are little space in between that actually do not amount to something logical. The logic that we use in our mind when we work fast on something that we do not want to resolve is very faulty. It gives us the impression and the feeling, yes, that makes sense, therefore my conclusion is, and then when the conclusion doesn't really match the result that we expected, you say, why? Because maybe there was some fault in between. In writing, we decrease that possibility enormously. Because once you have to write down, you can see the logic of what you write, the logicity. And if it's not there, then you question it. Then you go deeper into the problem. You realize at times that what you believe soundly is not exactly what is going on. The other reason, in this process, in writing, what happens is that the confusion starts to be sorted out. Clarity starts to come out. Because emotions, when we can feel different emotions at the same time and make a bundle out of it, we can feel fear, desire, anguish, pain, and whatever, all at once, betrayal, all at once, and can create these powerful knots. Once you have to express one by one, they start to have different identities, different intensity, and actually they start to really decrease the amount of power that the knot has. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. So that is the first, what I feel are the most direct benefits of writing. Plus, you have to discuss it on the fifth step with your sponsor. So obviously, when you are with another person, I do believe that the ability to forget things is a commodity that we cannot afford. Because I can always say, I forgot about that. And suddenly you can't say that. If you write when you are in the peacefulness, the quiet of your room, or whatever the time that you do to take the fourth step, you write it down. You cannot forget what you write down. And then finally there is, in this process, by the way, during the fifth step, you start to realize that in the interaction with the sponsor, a lot of things can come out. And if you have down in writing and you keep taking notes, you have a much better picture of what is going on in your life, in your resentment, in your fears, in your character defects. You start to have a much clearer picture of how you can tackle your issues. And finally, is a source of enjoyment in future time. When things are not going well, or when things are going really well, taking back the book or the notes that you wrote when you were at the fourth step can really be really funny or painful. Depends what you need at the time. It is funny when you're really in a good mood and you say, look, I was taking this thing seriously. Look what I was thinking then. It can be really uplifting when you suddenly realize the mode that you were 3 years or 2 years earlier and how you feel now. The sense, wow, you can see the changes. You can look at the character defects that were there, and suddenly you go on your life today and you realize that most of them are really very seldom appearing. So you have this concrete sense of growth and give you a lot of energy. The fact that you see, when we do every day, it's so easy to keep thinking nothing is changing. I am as before. You see, I made a mistake again. And we don't realize that actually, we change so much. And people, oh my God, I didn't recognize you. We change even physically. We change even physically because the sense of relaxation, the sense of peace really come on the outside. I believe in that there is an aura that people sees together with the physical, little details. There is something that, and people can see that you change. You go back to your work, and you can see the progress. That will help you to keep going on the same path. At times where things are not going well, you can go back and see, damn it, I forgot to do the things that I was supposed to do. I have these character defects, I knew it, but I didn't surrender it. I didn't go praying every day, God, please help me to relieve, to remove this character, this is my shortcoming, particularly this one. Or I knew that this area of my life are the one that most affect me, and I didn't pay attention to it. Okay, so it is really an interesting process. So the first step is done in writing, and again, each sponsor has its own way of doing the steps. Okay, I'm just making this workshop based on the 12 and 12 and the big book mostly, and that's what is suggested. At once we do this process, we write it down. Okay, but if your sponsor tells you no, I don't want you to write, you go for whatever it works. Okay, there are no truth. That is the truth. That is the way. That doesn't exist in my vocabulary. There are suggestions, advice that come from experience, and then you find your own way. You find your own truth. Okay, you might ask for help in just guiding. When you get stuck, so someone can help you to find your own truth. But I personally, I don't believe that I don't have anything to give you guys, but what I accumulated with experience that I share with you, and that should or might help you to just work your own way and find your own sense of reality, your own sense of peace, your own sense of joy, your own truth. I have nothing to give really. Piece of paper, a lot of that. That's a lot. Now, before going on and explain the character defect, the mechanical part of working the steps is this one. Okay, you have this, the one that is the last or the first, depending on one piece of paper that says sex. No, that is always in my mind. It is always in my mind. That should say actually resentment. Here we are. Okay, we call that the fourth step, the four columns step in inventory. So, what it is suggested is first that we examine ourselves and we make the list of all our resentments. There can be people, institutions, or principles. Okay, principles, as you can see over here, and is misspelled. Mm-hmm. So it's not principles, the school principles. That is obviously someone who had a very strong beef, with the principal of his probably elementary high schools, and decided, to make a category of its own,
Do you know
So,
what I just noticed on here is that I resent or have resented? Because that was a big question for me, thinking that I've already forgiven or let go of something that...
See, why it is important to write old resentments if we remember them.
Okay.
First, because if we remember them, there is still some part of them in us. There might be. But even if that is not the case, because they can help us to identify the most common character defect. I had that resentment. Why? Obviously, there was an area of my life to which I was very sensitive, and I was reacting, with certain character defects. Okay, so examining that can give us to see if there is a continuity. I might have gone over the resentment, But then I realized that the same character defect that were popping up in that resentment actually are still active. So I'm still open to the possibility of getting resentful again if similar circumstances come, even though in that specific instance I came to terms with the resentment.
Yeah, good.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there are other sponsor, other sponsor, school of thought that says, well, you don't need to put all the resentments. You just look at the most important one, just to see the pattern. Personally, I do not agree. I do not agree because I think that the function of working the step is to get rid of the resentment. It's not just to identify the character defects. Once I know what my resentments are, I need to get rid of it. So I really should have a very precise list of everything that is bothering me inside so that I can discuss that with my sponsor and come to terms with it. So it's not important that you make the distinction, at the beginning. But I say, make the list, just a list, without saying exactly what is you resent at the moment. And you remember I gave you actually the list on the back of that things, a list of common resentments. You should have one of these.
Right.
No? No, eh? No. You have that, right? You have for resentment too, or you have only fears?
I have.
You have resentment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see if I have another one.
I have one of yours.
You have fears only, or you have...
Yours only.
Okay, let me see.
You have resentment? I have resentment. Well, then we can...
Yeah, you can... You want a fear?
Oh, thank you.
You want a fear?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
You have fear, no?
Thank you.
I don't
Not
know.
resentment. But now I give you resentment, no?
Yeah, you just gave me the resentments, and I don't think I got fear.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have any more resentment, not even for myself, but... Okay, I give you the fear, but even though it will be next week.
Here?
Fears. I don't think I have any more... I don't think I have any more resentments list.
I'll make a copy. That's
Yeah?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I need one for myself because I need to make photocopies. So at the moment we work without that, okay?
I really want some resentment. I mean, I
You
have
really-
I mean, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but I really need some.
I'll bring them off for you.
I want to get me some, okay? Let's get down.
You want to
You
feel a
got
part
one
of
right
here.
now.
All right.
They're all
A
Where is
resentment
the-
on
they're
not
all what they
having,
Oh, I just got one. Thank you.
on not having resentment.
They're all what they call hidden.
A resentment of not having
They're,
resentment.
they're covered up, that's what they are.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
But I'm sure I can find another one.
I'm sure you can.
Anger. Anger? How about anger?
Is it
I-
best to
Got fear.
categorize them, do all your justifiables
Okay,
and all
now,
your imaginary
okay,
and then
that
all
where
your
we
no
come.
part in?
My suggestion is you start to write all of them that come to you, okay? You start to write. And once you have them down,
Uh-huh.
okay, you have all your resentment, then you have this one, no? This page, yes. Build another resentment now. This way. So you start to write on the first column all the names,
Okay.
okay? Then on the second column, once you have all the names, I suggest that you first really write down the resentments because once you start, they start by connection, they start to come.
Oh, you don't go all the way across?
No.
You finish one
no,
and then,
no.
oh.
Start make the list. Okay, you can make on a separate piece of paper because I guarantee you that while you are working on something is oh the fucking asshole, and you put down the name.
Okay.
You keep writing all the names on one side. Okay, complete list. Then you might want to give a cursory examination and start to separate in three columns, in 3-1. Okay, the one that you just read at them, say what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, and you just put on the first group. So you made the 3 groups
So you separate them after you
Yeah,
write them down.
after you write them down.
Okay.
You can start to say, color code, Okay, there is yellow. Yellow is the first group.
Okay.
Blue is the second, and green is the red. Whatever you want to
Okay,
use as a
okay.
system, or you can rewrite in 3 different pieces of paper.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay.
So that you start to have a sense of the group of resentment that you have.
Okay.
Okay. Then you start to write, let's say you start with the first group, okay? Because that will be happen with each one of them, okay? You start to consider the first one. I am resentful at, or I was resentful at.
So that's the imaginary person.
The person, you have your list. I was resentful
Right.
at my mother.
Okay.
Why? What is that threatens or threatened me? Okay? What is the harm that was done? What was the threat that was done? Because I can be resentful, not because something was done, but even somebody who just, the harm was done in putting me into fear. The harm was done somebody that lied to me to make me jealous. Okay? I am resentful at the person. The person actually didn't do anything in particular to me. He just said, "Oh, I saw Maria kissing with Joe around the corner," and he was joking, but didn't tell that he's joking. I hear that. Oh, my Maria! And Maria Pura was home, just cooking my dinner or something like that, Now I know that he said that, I have resentful toward I have a resentment toward the person. So resentment can be for something that doesn't necessarily mean happen or is an action or something.
Right.
Okay, it is an action. Being inconsiderate, lying to me. But then I go to examine that because which part did I had about that? Well, in the case of the guy telling that he saw Maria, I can say, well, I was in fear because I've been dishonest, because I had done that with Giuseppe the other day, because I'm jealous, because I'm insecure, because I think that I'm a piece of shit. So I start to examine all the aspects that brought me into the resentment. And suddenly I realized, if I were not that, if I didn't have this character defect, I would not be resentful. So the resentful start to go. I had my part in that. Okay? Okay, but let's go one step at a time. So we have the list. Okay? Then you might want to, in a kind of general way, put in one of the 3 groups. And I guarantee you, I don't know what your life experience is, but I think that usually the 3rd group is really very small. It's very small.
What's the 3rd group? I'm
The
like
3rd
lost.
group is the one that I was saying, okay? The first one are the resentment that you invented it.
Oh, this one here.
Yeah.
Okay, what the first one is what again?
The one that basically, they're
Imaginary.
almost
Imaginary.
imaginary one. Okay?
What's the second one again?
The second one is the one that to exist as resentment, but actually you had a part in it.
Part in it? My
You
part?
had, yes.
My
you
part.
you were a part in the events that
So what
then
can
you
I write
resent.
just as one word, my part?
It was the one that you had a part in it. Okay?
What's the 3rd group
The
again?
3rd group is the one what I call the justifiable resentments. The one that you have for a kind of violence, or abuse that was done to you in which you had
No part in it.
almost no part whatsoever, or your part was so little that basically it was inconsequential. Okay? For example, child abuse. Okay? If I was abused as a child, I had no part in it. It's not that, I can say, examine and say, well, but I was 7 years old and I was going around naked around the house. I have no fault in that if somebody abused me.
Right.
Or if my father beat me up, because I dropped the plate, and my father take the belt and he start to belt me. I can't say that because I dropped the plate it was my fault. And my father was abusing me. He beat me up for no reason, for his own reasons. So I was the victim of something, and I had no I have done nothing to deserve it. You cannot blame me as a 7-year-old kid for dropping a plate because accident happened, because I'm 7 years old, because I'm clumsy, because it was too hard for me. Whatever the reason,
Yeah.
you cannot blame me or justify that as a reason to beat me up.
Correct.
Okay? So that is a resentment that I can carry with me, that is justifiable.
Yeah.
I have been the victim of a violence and nothing to do with it. Okay? While, if you punch me on the face, okay, I say, oh, fuck, I resent you very deeply. You
Yeah.
just, what is that? I have the blood over here, blue over here. And then I go to examine somebody. I say, well, why did Mike punch you? Well, because he's a jerk. No, why did he punch you? Well, because I slapped him twice, he told me to stop, and I pushed him back, he told me to stop, I didn't, and he punched me on the face. The jerk, you see, look at that, he punched me. Now, I have a resentment because you beat me up, because you really broke my nose, okay? But if I go to examine the events, I had a part in it. That is group 2,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Okay.
That is group
My
2.
part, okay.
I had a
Got
part in it,
Got it.
okay?
Yeah.
And the first group is a group that said, and somebody cut me on the highway, just not even cut me, just get in front of me because there is room,
So it's
and because he had to take
whether it's intentional or unintentional.
the what?
I mean, the guy didn't care about he wanted to beat the light or
See, that is a perception, that is your perception, okay? You will see that the part that you're giving it, you want to create a resentment. Because it's totally irrelevant the reason why he did it. In reality, it's not that you have to slam the brake, that you broke something in the car. The guy just passed cut in front of you. Yeah, maybe you have to stop to slow down, But it's not really damage done. Now, you can perceive that as an absolute affront to you. How this little jerk with his stupid Toyota dare to cut me in front of my BMW? I mean, I can just let him eat dust with my car and he cut in front of me. Okay, you can have that kind of perception and keep the resentment in it. Or you can just say, I really hope that this guy is not going into an accident and hurting himself.
so it's you imagine that this guy was out to get
Yeah,
you. Or,
you imagine the guy wanted to show you how powerless you were with your little car or your big car or whatever. So you imagine that and you keep the resentment. That is the kind of the first group, okay? The one that once you really examine, after 30 seconds that you look at the resentment, you say, I have to be really desperate.
So I've been imagining all this shit all my life?
Yes,
You're saying
yes,
basically?
darling, yes.
Wow.
Okay, so is
We
this...
love drama.
I'm tired, man.
We love drama.
That's awful.
so
I was sure.
sure you didn't
It's
have
not
Writing.
all about you.
Writing. Now, I didn't go in the sense, I'm resentful to my dealer because he cut my coat, I didn't go over there. My bookies, because he gave me the wrong spread, of the dealer because he gave me the wrong card, or the bartender because they pay $8 for not even half an ounce of vodka. I didn't go into there. No, I got other kind of resentments, okay? But those can be resentment. I had resentment over bartenders, over people. So, when I was buying the gallon of vodka, why I have to go to Safeway to buy Popov for $6.78 and not buy at the corner store, so I don't need to risk to go drunk to Safeway to buy my gallon of vodka. That was my own resentments, Okay. Or when I didn't have enough money with the penny and the bottle of vodka, was just costing 35 cents and I didn't have it. Look at these jerks, they want to make money on anything, and they wouldn't give me for 35 cents less. And I'm talking about pennies. I was there, unfortunately. Okay, so that is the first column, okay? Then we go, second column, what happened? The events. Okay? So I am resentful at My father, because now you remember I saw there a time, if you use because he was a jerk or because he was violent. No, try to break down the resentment in as small parts, isolated parts as you can. Okay?
That's the second column.
The second column.
So like on my thing, maybe I didn't break it down.
Okay, why don't we do a thing? Do you have?
I have my boss.
Okay, let's go 1 second with her resentment. Okay, let's see how we would do it.
Okay.
So the first column says, "I'm resentful. I'm my boss."
Right.
Okay, reasons.
Right. Okay. Because she doesn't help me out, and I'm thinking in my mind of a specific event where I asked for sales galleys and she refused to give them to me.
Okay,
I should have wrote that instead of
you
doesn't
should have
help
wrote
me
when he
out.
said because she doesn't help me out. It's too vague.
Okay.
Okay, because it can bring emotion that come from a lot of different aspects of your relationship with her at work.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
and because there could be reason that you can be angry or resentful in a certain way because she doesn't do anything really to help you out. But there could be then you can attach to that other reasons in which actually you will have liked something but it's not so important, but you attach them on the first, you see, she doesn't help me out in this specific issue, and then in the back of your mind you say, and she didn't let me off for Christmas, and she didn't let me do that, and she,
I
told
have
me
a
about
whole
my
list
socks,
of
and
them,
so you say, well, the whole list that altogether put forward, it seemed like an absolutely powerful reason to be resentful at her.
Okay.
What happened is that if you break down into different parts, you might realize that 97% of those claim of victims, actually are non-existent. Or she had all the reasons and the right to do exactly what she did. Or you had a part and she had to react. I say, the boss doesn't like me, and he put me on a bad shift.
Uh-huh.
And then upon examination, my sponsor said, so how were you at work? Well, he complained that I was late. Were you late? Yes, but...
So we're making basically a lot of assumptions. And when we take someone else's inventory, we don't really know what.
Well, when we made the resentments on the reason why somebody did it, we take in somebody else's inventory.
Okay.
Okay? So when you break down into parts, then you can see right away if there is a legitimate claim because facts, or because suddenly you are projecting on the other person or making the inventory of the other person.
Well, what if I don't know why do I have to go to her to find out why she didn't do these things that, to me, were part of her job description?
That might be a solution. But if you have clearly in front of you, then you do not have a resentment any longer. You have the possibility of a normal grievance with your boss.
And go in with a written grievance.
And you can say, listen to me, without anger.
Uh-huh.
You say, I believe that you are doing something wrong here to me because of that.
Right, where she would give other people galleys, but not me.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So, but the point is that if you isolated exactly what the reasons are,
Okay.
you detach yourself from the anger because you do not know yet the reason that she will give it to you.
Exactly.
Okay? So you are just assuming that she's doing something against you, and inside you might think because she doesn't like me,
Yeah.
or because my hair is black, or because I don't pay her back something, or whatever reason you want to give. You go with assumption and you build up a resentment that is based purely on assumptions. Okay? So in analyzing the facts, you start to see that there are certain actions that you did not take that is your part in it.
Okay.
I'm resentful of her because she didn't give me the galley. And then the sponsor asks you, did you ask for?
I did, but she just didn't respond. So I should have asked again.
Did you ask again? Or there is a procedure that you didn't follow? Or has she the right to do these things or not?
She's
So
the boss,
the-
she can do whatever she wants.
Well, that what I'm saying is that you can start to see which part you had in it.
My part was not being more aggressive or assertive.
That might be a possibility.
Okay.
So you are angry at yourself. So you have resentment over yourself because you feel you were not more aggressive.
Okay.
But you project it on her. So you keep the anger and you use all the other little things around your job to be resentful of this person and ruining your life. Well, if you write down and you break down the parts of it,
Okay.
okay, and then see what my part was, you realize. See, the goal of this inventory is to examine and to see what the resentments are, and try to get rid of them.
Okay.
Okay. In the process, you start to see. Okay. For example, that. Okay. Let's take this case. Okay.
Okay.
This specific one. So, which part of your agenda, the fact that she doesn't give you what?
Sales galleys, which
I don't know what sales galleys are.
sales galleys to help me meet my goals. I'm a broker, investment broker.
Yeah.
She gives me leads. I work the leads to bring dollars into the bank.
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's
Okay.
it. So I have a goal, and it's her job to help me fulfill that goal. But I feel she didn't do her part by giving me the galleys, the leads, in order to reach the goal.
Yeah.
Does she give them to other people?
Yes. That was the problem. She was giving them to all the new people and letting the old people kind of fend for themselves,
Okay.
which I didn't feel was fair across the board.
Okay.
So not just you, but other people as well?
I know of one other person in particular, but, I like to just look at me.
Okay.
I
Now-
was not given any tools to help me reach my goals. Therefore, I didn't hit them.
Okay.
Okay.
So now you have a resentment because you did not reach your goals, and you blame her of not giving something that you think she should have given to you.
Correct.
Am I correct
That's
on
been
this
given
point?
to me in the past. That's
They
correct.
were given to you in the past and not any longer.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's go first. Which aspect of your life really affects you?
Okay. Financially.
Financially, so you see the social instinct, but there is the
My
Nice.
pride and self-esteem, of course,
why.
because they were given to other people and not to me.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a matter that you're feeling treated less than. So you have
Exactly.
lost some of the intimacy. You have lost some of the friendship. You have lost some of the relationship with her.
Right.
So there is an emotional aspect. Okay. So this one, it would be probably the reason for a separate
Well, I
issue.
can see how it's going to.
But you
now
see,
I go
but
down,
now you can see how you can confuse the issues
it's gonna
together.
Go like a tree.
No, you are confusing the issue. They're not trees, actually. They're all completely different steps. Because one thing is, I'm feeling hurt because she is not my friend anymore. That is one issue. So you have to say, I'm resentful because she doesn't show me friendship anymore.
Well, that's not really friendship. I've never been a friend of hers.
Intimacy or
I think it's
job.
respect.
That is a beautiful word. Respect.
Respect.
She doesn't show me
I
respect.
think she disrespected me. That's what I feel.
Okay, so this one in resentment is not the resentment is not because she doesn't give you the hint, the leeway, the galway, whatever.
Leads. Okay.
Leads.
Galleys, yeah.
Okay, galleys. So you see, once you start to break down into the reason, your resentment here is no longer actually a financial, it's primarily complaint. At least that's what you said. Is she disrespected me? So the resentment is, okay, she does not respect me as before.
Okay.
That is your main resentment with this person.
Well, my main resentment is that I didn't hit my financial goals. I don't think my resentment would have been as large if I would have hit my goal. I make commissions.
Yeah, but that's a manifestation
So,
of
but
See,
respect.
the point is, she didn't respect you,
right,
so the result is I didn't make my goal,
right,
okay? So I resent her because she did not respect me. The point is that if you look at the reason why you did not make my goal, it might be possibly, okay, that you did not work hard enough,
okay.
okay? So you have to separate the two issues.
It actually made me work harder though, because I didn't have the tools I had prior.
Well, that was not a tool. That was a handout. That is what part, you see,
Well,
she
no,
has,
I've been doing this for
listen to
years.
me,
We used to
she's,
get them every
she's a
year.
boss, she has certain priorities, okay?
Right.
She has probably to meet her own quotas,
Right, which
Okay.
I'm part of.
which you're part of.
That's
Now
correct.
she must have her priority and think what she gives me is not enough or not what I really need to meet my own needs. So I abandon her.
Okay, I felt abandoned. That's a good word.
Okay. Now, if you look from your point of view, you create a resentment without actually putting yourself in the situation that she is, that she has to meet her own agenda.
Okay,
So, but you put the emotional aspect, okay,
right.
I have been abandoned,
Okay,
into the aspect I didn't meet my quota. So you put the two together and become a powerful resentment.
Okay.
Because you have not clarity actually. What really pissed you off is the fact that you did not meet your quota. Is the fact that you are feeling less respected, your perception, in the company because you did not meet your quota. Is the fact that actually you feel that she did not respect you enough to give you the leads.
to help me meet my
Is the
quota.
fact that maybe you're just feeling jealous because she's helping somebody else more than she helped you. So there are all different aspects that you put together.
Right,
In place of examining them one by one, you just put them together as lamb.
right.
She didn't give me a lead, and I'm resentful at her for that.
Okay,
Break it down. Break it down because then you can see why she moved to another person. Do I have the right to ask that question? Do I have the right to be resentful? Yes or no?
okay,
Okay? She had a new pet project. I'm no longer the pet project in her goals. Do I have the right to be resentful? So which part do I have in it? My part could be, I assume that I want to be the pet project and not actually, and I am, fourth column, inconsiderate because I don't even think, I don't care a shit about what she needs. All I think is what I need. So suddenly you discover that your part is, I'm really inconsiderate because I never ask her, how come that your interest shifts? How come that suddenly you give more to another person? There is something I can do to help you meet your quota. There is something I can do to help you improve your job. No, what do you think is, she didn't help me.
right.
I am the only one. You did not ask her. How come that you help the other person? You didn't ask her because you are afraid maybe that she says, you know what, the person that I gave the lead to actually had 3 kids in the hospital. She needs the money so badly that I want to help her out. You don't know that.
Yeah, you're right.
The only thing that you are asking for is me. I didn't get what I want.
Yeah,
So far you got what you need. But you see how the
That's very good.
columns work. When you start to go, first you look what really affect. So you break it down into parts and you see that each aspect actually affect a different aspect of your life.
Okay.
Emotional, the pride, the ego, the financial aspect, and that. Then you go on the fourth column and you say, which part did I have in it?
I
Now-
checked all of them.
Well, so once you go that, you start to see, well, okay, I was dishonest because probably I didn't tell a few things that she might should have known. I was inconsiderate. I was sick and frightened because I was afraid that if she didn't help me, I would not get the quota. Okay? So you start to see your character defects.
Right,
Okay? The elements in your character, you know, that brought you to build up this resentment. But in reality, you know, what she did is not something that justified this huge resentment unless you are so self-centered. So, and you look at your character defect, but then you build up a resentment where actually there should be no reason. You should be able to do things on your own. She helped you before. Now you demand that help. If the help is not given to you, and in place of examining, there may be other people that are needs help more than I do. What are the priorities? Because what is changing in our life? In place of going outside and see what is going on, The only thing that you do is you close yourself in, you attach other little elements. Oh, she bought a present for Christmas that was $12 less than last year. Oh, just to say, okay? All these little stupid things that suddenly, boom, 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 we build this. I am right to be resentful. Look how many things she did wrong to me.
Okay.
Actually, if you start to break them down, you realize there are all different things, many of which you have no right whatsoever to complain about.
Okay. So where do you break them down? In the why you're angry column?
Yes. Once you start to examine,
Okay.
okay, and you start to see what my part was it, suddenly it can come to you, oh, you know what, wait a minute. There is a different issue. When you start to examine the third column, the part in my life, in examining that, in asking what really affected me, you suddenly might start to realize that actually your resentment is breakable in other parts.
I got you. Okay.
See, it's a dynamic process.
Right.
The reason why I say break it down,
Okay.
because so you can see actually all the aspects in your life that are affected, the mechanism that you use, character defect, to be under the ego spell. The spell tells you, you see what she did to you? Selfishness, self-centeredness. That is the root of our disease.
Okay.
The ego used those elements as a tool to bring you back to drink. How? Self-centeredness, selfishness, and considerate.
Okay.
So, poor me, self-pity.
Self-pity, yeah.
If I go, I'm going back to drink. So once you see the mechanism, and that is the reason of the fourth step, you just examine, you find out which one are the character defects that the ego uses as a tools to get you into the shame, guilt, self-pity. And then, back to drink.
Damn, that's going to take a long time.
It might take a long time.
I have a question.
Holy, I thought
Yeah.
it was too easy.
My question is, and this is not the first week that I've seen like that, but they all kind of look alike.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
And my question is, why are these columns so little? If we have to write so much stuff, I just don't understand that.
Why?
How can you write all of this that we need to write in
Binder paper.
Why? They tell you why. Because the first thing that we do actually when you do that is just we want to give another reason to find easy resentment.
Oh, okay.
So you have your little resentment over
Just
there.
got number 2 resentment.
So
See,
that
now you
was-
know-
And
part
then
of this?
when you write over there, you write, because I'm cheap.
No, I thought no, but not that I want to complain, but
Oh, no, you didn't complain.
oh, okay.
Now, okay, I'm sorry you already went a little bit over time.
Do you have another sheet?
I should have another one, yeah.
A great example.
Huh? Yeah.
That
Because
was
I see
wonderful.
how once I go down, I really
Okay,
do
this
have to break
one
it
are
down.
the character. Oh, this one is the resentment. So this one is the.
Well, I have to-
You're gonna need to resent.
I have a list of resentment, but I don't
I'm
have.
gonna need some resentment. I'm gonna be a workaholic.
Hey, better get some.
Oh, and I've got a whole list
sorry.
of